Yesterday, or the approximately 24 to 36 hours before that, I mean, that was the craziest day I've ever seen. Terra, the blockchain coin Luna, and the stablecoin UST, just completely imploded. I think it went from a 23 or $24 billion market cap, something like that. Like, it was trading at $116 or so a few weeks ago. Traded at, I actually bought some this morning for a flip for 88 cents. And in the span of one day, it traded from like $65 or something all the way down to like 60 cents. Absolutely wild. And, we're talking about a top 10 protocol just turning into dust overnight. Just over 10 billion, maybe 20 billion when you factor in some of the UST losses plus the Luna price. Just complete destruction. I've never seen anything like it, really.
Yeah. Speaking of, have we ever had? And sorry, I throughout this conversation, I might do some of those questions that we talked about, Steve. But have we ever had like a top 10 coin like that? I can't recall anything like this.
No, in 2017 we had a BitConnect.
Yeah.
But like when you chart BitConnect versus Luna, it's like almost doesn't even register. I think Hoffman actually posted a chart of it side by side, and it just paled in comparison. Like, so
how big was BitConnect at its peak?
It was nothing. I feel like it was like 500 million or so, maybe. Okay. I don't even know if it hit a billion. I don't quote me on that, but a just fraction of Terra, and Terra was so much worse too, because while BitConnect in 2017 was its own kind of like memeable Ponzi scheme, it just sort of existed on its own, right? Terra and UST were integrated with a ton of different protocols. They had spread throughout Ethereum and a variety of other blockchains, Solana, AVAX, Phantom. That coin was everywhere. We probably still haven't even seen the full effects of the impact yet. I'm worried about firms like Celsius and Nexo, and whether or not they were juicing some yield on the back end through Anchor. Worried about protocols using it for like a treasury yield, anything else that we don't even know like has happened yet. I think there's still some unknowns there, and it's definitely a little bit scary.
So what do you think are the biggest ramifications after an implosion of this magnitude? Yeah. I think like you're right that this is going to have like crazy domino effects. The biggest of which is probably like regulations coming quicker and more heavy-handed than
and the perception of the public, perhaps the novice investor or the one that has been awaiting an entry point. These are the people texting me and being like, dude, what the fuck are you involved in even? That looks like the biggest Ponzi in the world. Like, what are you doing? Like, does this prove a lot of people's points?
The Warren Buffetts and Charlie Mungers of the world just coming to say, I told you so.
Is this the told you so moment? How bad? And then this is more just a question. I know it sounds rhetorical, but it's not. It's like, how bad is this really for crypto as a whole? What are really the ripple effects? I guess it's obviously impossible to know, but if we had to guess, I can say for sure that from the outside looking in, for the novice investor, for the person who has a little bag of crypto, they're looking at this and they're just more terrified than ever before. They're like, why would I put any significant amount of money into this? Which goes back to rule number one: put in what you can afford to lose. And sadly, that is still the case. This is not a secure asset class, in particular, some of the stuff with stable coins, which we'll be talking about. But yeah, how bearish is this for long-term ecosystem market sentiment?
So long-term, I think this is bullish, because, in much the same way that forest fires kind of cull the overgrowth in a forest, and they have this kind of natural mechanism in stabilizing the ecosystem. Like so too is this. Like this is a similar thing, because you're taking projects or ideas that are fundamentally sort of like misaligned or bad for the ecosystem as a whole, right? And they take up capital, they take up people's time, they take up people's energy, time, money that could be directed elsewhere to more productive things, and they refocus them in the correct spot.
That is a very good analogy. Is that your analogy? I'm gonna have to like trademark that for you. That's very good.
Thank you. That was good. So you think that the money is going to eventually flow to the most anti-fragile protocols like Bitcoin and ETH? This is like a natural consolidation.
Look, I think the market for a long time has needed a reminder of why crypto exists in the first place. Now, I do respect that Terra was kind of trying to do something crypto, that kind of was adjacent to the crypto ethos. They were trying to build a stable coin that was truly decentralized and also truly scalable, which is the thing we haven't really been able to do. It is this like big multi-trillion-dollar problem, but we also have this problem in DeFi and crypto as a whole, where we are getting really good at these kind of Ponzi-nomics schemes where we're able to warp all of these incentives to kind of bootstrap incredible growth in the short run, but a growth that sort of inevitably ends in complete annihilation and at a pace that's like very, very rapid, right? I don't know if Armand was a part of Iron Finance, but I was, and you were, and I've done like 25 variations of these things, all the way back to the original uncollateralized stablecoin, which I think was Basis Cash. I've played these games trying to make money, right? But like Luna was dangerous because it was kind of the first one that was like really dressing itself in something that was super legitimate.
Wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I feel bad because I don't know. We've joked about it on this pod before, and we've always called it a Ponzi, and we'd probably do it in a way where like people don't really understand what we're talking about because we live in this crypto world, right? Where you sort of acknowledge it's this like dark humoristic kind of acknowledgement of like the reality of what's happening around you, right? Which is that a lot of this stuff was like a big casino. It was a lot of Ponzi games, and if you were good at those games and understood them, you could make money, right? But if you were a kind of just newbie wandering in, it's just so easy to get completely wrecked. I even lost a good chunk of money in the Luna blow up because well, partially because I just didn't get out in time because I'm stupid.
It happened so fast. Like it happened.
Yeah, it happened fast. I knew it was going to explode, and I just wanted to go to dinner. Is the reality of my situation. So that's
just to
me
give
being an idiot.
Context to this, like 30 days, even 14 days ago, just price of Luna, Terra, $80, not even 5 days ago, and it's at $1 today. So that's the level of, just to give people that don't have that context. We're talking about something that has completely lost its value. There was
you got to have empathy for the investors, but not only them. Like, how about the builders that were like building on the Terra ecosystem, and like now everything they worked on is now just like scrapped, worthless.
Like Terra, and what Do Kwon, the founder of Terra, did was very kind of it was very the opposite of the Bitcoin ethos, right? Ethereum kind of like went a little bit outside the Bitcoin ethos and said, we're going to move a little bit faster. We're going to try a few more things. We need to do stuff that's more robust, but it still did it in a bit of a, kind of decentralized fashion. Like Terra was basically like, this crypto stuff is too slow, it's too decentralized, it's too inefficient. We're going to have this like charismatic founder who does like an Elon Musk tweet style and tries to pump the price of his coin and rally community, and the idea that community equals network equals value, right? And I'm going to bootstrap the adoption of UST, and we're going to run this like it's basically like a centralized company to a degree. It was very sort of anti the original ethos of Bitcoin. Bitcoiners are certainly all, well, some of them are probably laughing. I mean, but they're feeling validated, I think, at the very least today, because that type of mentality, that kind of new or that old TradFi world mentality, has just like completely exploded. And as bad as like Ethereum and Bitcoin did today, like when you looked at the charts today, it was one of the worst bloodbaths I've ever seen. But at one point, like, you saw Terra down, Luna down like 68%. You saw a chain like even Avalanche, which people are kind of, saying is this Ethereum killer, 37% down, right? Meanwhile, ETH was down like 3 or 4%. Bitcoin was down 3 or 4% at the time, right? Yeah. So to get back to my long-term thing, there is today, I think for the first time in a long while, we saw the market realize that there is a real divide between BTC and ETH and everything else. We saw a ton of capital flow, from the L1s into ETH and from the whole ETH L1 world into Bitcoin. And ultimately a lot of capital left the ecosystem as a whole because we did have a very down day. But like there was a massive rotation from one sector, which was really the big sector for the last bull run, right? Into kind of the old school safe havens, Bitcoin and ETH. There was this recognition of the market that decentralization does matter. Safety in the time of those 1 in 900 days when the shit does hit the fan is like way more important than the other 899 days when everything is going smoothly. And this is especially true of stable coins, right? I watched Doe give a lot of shit to Rune and the founders of Maker, who created DAI, right? The originally Ethereum backed stablecoin, because it was kind of slow and didn't grow a lot, right? But Luna's gone, UST is gone, DAI is still $1. DAI's already survived the COVID crash. So a lot of things are kind of coming full circle right now. It's like days like this or yesterday that really make you realize why we're here. But you and I and Eric, we're just kind of reinforcing these existing beliefs we've had. And I've gotten away from some of them, and I'm sure you have as well. It's very easy to get caught up in the mania, and you kind of drift from your first principles. But there's a whole lot of other people out there who are just learning these things from the first time. They don't understand why Luna wasn't going to go to like $100 trillion. And they don't understand why ETH is so expensive to use. They don't understand why Bitcoin doesn't quote unquote do anything, right? And now they're sort of learning. They're it's like kind of like their first annihilation, and they're learning those lessons. It's like this circle of life where every time you're in the market, right, every cycle you kind of go through and you learn. Like it seems like everybody learns the same lessons over and over again, right? So if this is your first time here, congratulations. You've learned why we call things shit coins. You've learned why BTC is what it is. You've learned why ETH what it is. Or maybe if you don't realize it exactly, you've learned that the market certainly does, because those two coins are substantially less wrecked, right? Just to put some stuff, like I think there are some L1s like Harmony or Phantom, like there are L1s that are down like 90%, 95% already, and ETH was down 60% in that time span. And that might not sound like a lot, but that's like the equivalent of like losing half of your money like 2 more times, right, after you already went down. So it is
Phantom's down 40% today. This is fucked.
It's insane. It's just like an absolute carnage. There's no other way to say
Remember
it.
when people were saying that we won't ever have a bear market in crypto ever again?
I mean, all those people were idiots, obviously. I don't know who believed that. I mean, there was some talk of the quote unquote super cycle thing, and a lot of super I don't know if I'm willing to write off the super cycle, but like super cycle Like if we bounce here on Bitcoin and everything slowly just kind of bleeds for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and Bitcoin just kind of holds this line while everything else bleeds out, it's kind of a super cycle for Bitcoin. It trades down like 50, 60% and then resumes back up. That's pretty good. That's a lot better than negative 90.
What was the previous high? Because isn't that a level people look at, that it doesn't go lower than the previous high?
I mean, I think we hit 69K, right?
68,000.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what about from the last cycle, previous high? Was that like
last
20K?
cycle previous high was 20K?
Yeah.
20K. We went from 20 to 33 ish, so that was,
that'd be interesting if we drop.
I think we drew down like 93, 94% last cycle. Right. Ooh. So drawing down quote unquote only 60 would be a big victory.
Couple highlights there. One, I think, love the forest fire analogy. I think that's important. I think I'll probably have that clipped. Nicely done, Stephen. Second one is, I think the perspective that you shared is really important around, taking these losses, these L's, as the Zoomers would say, taking the L's on the chin and understanding that these are ultimately the time and the steps necessary to create wisdom as an investor. Like you have to look at it that way. And I know a lot of people that were Luna rich, and by a lot I mean like at least 4 or 5 people like very close to me that had a lot of Luna, and they're devastated, and like most of their net worth at this point within crypto came from Luna. And if you wake up one day and that is completely gone, I mean, think about the different ways people played this. Like so many people probably were like, I'm just going to wait it out. It's going to be okay. I trust Do Kwon, blah, blah, blah. Another couple days goes by, from 30, it's at $1. And now you have nothing when you could have gotten out with something. There's all these different psychological situations that can really fuck a person up. And it's terrible. And if anyone's listening that is in that situation, my heart goes out to you. It's absolutely terrible. That said, we're playing a long-term game here, and there's cleanup happening. And I think this cleanup is ultimately healthy, and you end up learning patterns. Even just myself, I've learned so many patterns in NFT trading. And if there's one simple pattern that we've talked about so many times between us on this pod, and one that I'll just mention right now, you have to watch out for this euphoria. Every time the euphoria is happening, we end up chasing it. That's obviously what we call FOMO. And these are the times where you as a human being become so emotional that you can't help yourself but to shovel cash and take out a loan just to get involved in that thing that everyone is telling you is going to make you rich. The reality is, though, the room left for that to go up at that point of entry into the market is very little. It's like another 5%, because you're catching the tail end of that. The euphoria is already there. The smart investor in that moment is selling. That's what they're doing. They're selling. And the smart investor in this moment is accumulating. And so what I think we'll be talking about a lot on this podcast, depending on how long this all lasts, is what we're accumulating and how and to what degree. But these are the lessons we learn the hard way. And like you said, Stephen, like I'm a pretty risk averse investor, and every time any of these shit coins has come up, I'm always apprehensive. I'm like, I'm just buying more Bitcoin and ETH. And the reason that I've always leaned a little bit more heavily toward Bitcoin, because it's less volatile. And in moments like this, which you talked about in the Discord, hurts a little less, feels a little better. Do I get the same level of return? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not over the next 5 years. But if you can't stomach the volatility, like you definitely don't want to be in shit coins because you can lose it all. And you definitely don't want to be too ETH heavy. But overall, long term, you're okay with those two for now. And we don't really have, I don't know if we really have a solid third asset within the crypto space that we could count on at all to be a long-term bag holding item. I mean, you'd probably have to say it's like a Bored Ape. Like that would be the next best thing. You know, that's the only thing that isn't absolutely fucked right now.
CryptoPunk before
And
Bored
sorry,
Ape, but we can
CryptoPunk.
We can argue about that.
CryptoPunk, a Bored Ape, and maybe a couple other NFTs, but really, ultimately, you're just holding
I'd rather have
Ethereum.
Coinbase stock, probably long term.